Tell me how you were able to instill that in your sales guys, because you actually scaled to a level to be able to sell. So how were you able to take Chad and Jim's commitment, who did every job in the company ever, and then turn it into saying, all right, here's what we're about, and how do you do that? How do you bring that down to people? Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop. Here we go, Alan. Another big day, big time. If you're in the truck listening, man, if you're a hunter, I'm throwing a shout out to you, big guy. I was talking to you earlier today before we were taping this episode. You guys were all thinking about what do we do when we start a business and all the things I got to think about. And I want to get all this great wisdom from people. And he asked me two things, man. Like, what can you just give me two things? Because I know you're short of time because I was running late, maybe running a little fast like I always do.
But let me slow down a little bit. What did he want to do?
He wants to start a handyman business in Colorado. He had just moved to this town. He asked me, do you think I'm dreaming? I didn't have a chance to say, well, it's going to be a tough haul, bro, because you don't have a lot of friends to build off of if you just moved there. But he wants to build his own handyman business, but he doesn't want it to take his time or away from his family. I said two things. One thing you got to learn is you always sell to your lowest level of belief, and you got to believe you're worth the money you're about to charge, and you're going to need to charge twice as much as you're thinking right now. Two, you got to wake up every morning and go, you're going to solve a fucking problem today, because you're going to be solving problems every day. And that's who we got on today. My boy, Chad Abel, I went to college with him at Michigan Tech. We went to school for engineering, did the whole engineering thing, but we started to get back together here lately, and he starts telling me, he said, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, well, I kind of sold my business. I'm like, do what? I kind of got invested in another business. Do what? I kind of think I'm going to start another one. I'm like, do what? I said, dude, I got to have you on my podcast. I can't wait to hear this story. Now, Chad Abel is on, and he's going to talk to us about how you looked at a business that you were in and how you figured out a way to start a business in that same business, in that same area, in that same industry. And so, Chad, welcome, man. Can't wait to have the audience hear a little bit more about your story.
I want to hear if Chris was really all that in college.
Well, hey, it all started with my left guard, Chris, right? So he was an animal. And that's where it all started. And actually, my business partner for Northwoods Paper Converting, which we Greenfield started, he was our water boy, our trainer. So it must come all the way back to Michigan Tech football.
That's it. No name you, baby. That's what Gottlieb called us.
Right.
No name you. That's right. Well, frankly, we are, because nobody in Atlanta. I come across, my son was waiting tables. Guy comes up and he said something about being from Michigan. And my son goes, hey, go green. He goes, oh, yeah, go white. He goes, well, actually, I didn't go to state. I went to another school called Michigan Tech. And he goes, no way. That's where my dad went. And the guy's like, go Huskies. Tell your dad. Go, yeah. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So, but Chad, your story is, I think, really cool, because you took off, you got in the industry. And I want you to tell the story about you got in the business that you did and explain that a little bit, but when that opportunity came. So if you could just give us that background first on the business and the industry you're in.
Yeah, so like Chris, my background was engineering out of college, and I worked for a company called Marquip, which manufactured corrugated and sheeting equipment. And I was a field engineer, and so I worked a lot on corrugators and sheeters. And I was up in Toronto working on a sheeter that was having issues, had issues for like 6 months. I didn't install it, but I installed another machine that they had earlier on, a couple of years earlier. And so anyway, this nagging issue was going on, and so I ended up getting there within an hour, fixed the issue. The guys are super happy. The two owners took me out for lunch, and we were talking. They're like, hey, we're looking at expanding, maybe opening up a plant in Chicago. Would you have any interest in running that for us? And I think at the time I was probably, I don't know, 25, 26. And I'm like, what the hell do I know about running a company? And no, I appreciate the offer. no, thank you. And then I don't know, maybe a month later, I was back home. I was just having some fish fry with my parents on like a Friday night at a bar in northern Wisconsin, and then I was kind of laughing about what had happened, and then so my mom, who's been in the paper industry forever, she was like, "Hey, why not you? If they're asking you to do it, and the equipment, why not you? Why not go and research, create a business plan, and figure out if you're if you can do it on your own, just greenfield started and put money you've saved over the last whatever 5, 6 years and figure out if it makes any sense." So I talked to one of two of the original owners of Marquip, who I worked with. The minority owner was bought out in the mid '90s, and then he became a consultant. So I went and talked to him, and he liked the idea. Basically, I went from being an employee of Marquip to being one of the largest customers of Marquip by buying sheeting equipment for them as we started the Northwoods paper converting business and then growing it over 20 years prior to selling it. So yeah, it was a cool story. I talked to Richard Thomas. He was the minority owner of Marquip, and then consultant. Great guy, super talented. He's got a PhD degree in electrical engineering. Did some really cool designs on with drives and power supplies and four-phase motors and all this stuff for Marquip. Really, they had advancements in technologies that most in the paper industry didn't have. But so I met with Richard, and he was like, "Hey, yeah, you gotta, like the idea. First thing I recommend is finding a business partner, somebody you could trust if something ever happened to you, where he or she, can run with the business and continue to grow it, and somebody maybe your future wife and kids could trust if something ever happened to you." So I called Jim, who also went to Michigan Tech, Jim Morrow, and like I said, he was a trainer for a couple of years while Chris and I played football up there, and convinced Jimmy who was in the automobile industry, to resign from where he was working and try to make a go of this contract sheeting opportunity or idea. So yeah, so we started off. We At the time we were 28 years old, and talked to many different people within the paper industry, got advice from different people and advisors. Come across a really good advisor from us in the Minneapolis area, told us that, hey, if you ever really decide to get into this, you guys should add large format sheeting to the normal sheeting business that everybody else is in, which is more of a commodity. And we kind of followed his direction and interviewed paper mills and printers and merchants and so on and so forth. And we got some people to commit to us and gave us basically a letter of credit that we could take to a bank and allow us to buy our first sheeter. And the first sheeter we bought was obviously a Marquip, who I previously worked for. And then we worked with them on the design of it. Since Marquip had never built a fine paper sheeter, they were mostly sheeters that ran solid fiber, which is like a cereal box material. So it was interesting. And, so we got a building in central Wisconsin, which we thought was a great place to locate between Chicago and Minneapolis, which were both big print markets. And we started up. We had a couple of employees. We worked crazy hours from
All right, you got to
running.
stop there because we got to go back on a couple. There's so many things Alan's just dying to ask. So
Okay.
we're going to pick it back up after you started, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, so here you decide to take the deal. You know the equipment, but do you know sales? Do you know how to hire people? Do you know how to get the real estate? And oh, by the way, now you're actually working with a machine that you essentially had to invent that then you went and got the money from the bank. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
How did you manage all that?
Well, one, it was nice being 28, where you're full of piss and vinegar, right? And you probably, in some ways, I
You don't
probably
know how
did
dumb
know
you are?
better. Yeah. So I mean, like now I look at it, I'm like, holy cripes, would I do that again? If I had 4 kids and married and this and that, and there's no way. So for me, when I worked as a field engineer, Marquip was really good in allowing people to develop kind of on their own. They put you in the fire and you had to figure stuff out. You became a man real quick. And so when we first started, as a field engineer, I'd be on the road for months at a time, working 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day. So I grew a lot from that. And so when we started the business, it was the same thing, except I didn't have to travel anymore. It was 14, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, and then Jimmy, I just needed him to adapt because he came out of a environment where he was more office work and, working whatever, 50 hours a week versus 80 hours a week. And so, yeah, it was neat. There was no doubt it was, we kind of walked. I mean, we had advisors, which were huge, which included my mother, and I told you about Richard Thomas, and then this gentleman out of Minneapolis, and they kind of, so we were kind of sporadic, and then like Richard, we talked to Richard. He's like, no, this is the way you got to go. You got to zone in here. This is where you got to go, and so we were great at listening, and then we were kind of the guys that put in all the work, blood, sweat, and tears. So yeah, it was. Yeah, you got to get lucky, right? You got to be in the game to get lucky, and along the way, you got to get a little bit lucky.
Well, but
But
you got to be good, and the fact that there are a lot of people that get into business who don't want the advice because they can do it by themselves. And I was thinking when you were talking about your advisors, are they the kind of advisors that you consulted with before you made a decision, or was it after you made a mistake?
right, no, this was all before, we did as much as we could up front. So we had, so we kind of made an educated decision on moving forward. So yeah, and without them, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we were, because we used all three of the advisors for heavily the first 5 years of our growth of the business. And as you had asked, like, did we have any HR experience? No. I was a field engineer, basically working on my own in the field. From time to time, I'd have other engineers with me. And then, of course, I was at customers' plants. So you're dealing with people that were janitors to presidents of the company, and everything in between with operators, maintenance guys, engineers, so on and so forth. So, so yeah, it was good. We got kicked out of a couple of banks when we were first looking to borrow money, just because they're like, you guys are what? You're 28 years old. You think you're going to start a business from scratch and you don't have any customers. Right. Yep. That's exactly,
That
that's
I,
exactly where
100%.
we're at.
Dude, there's one thing you kind of slipped in there that really quick that I think is really lost on a lot of people. At 28, you had actually saved money, and your mom said use
Oh,
your
true.
savings. Right? At 28, saving money. The only money I saved by 28 was the stuff that my dad told me I had to put away in a 401k, because that way he says if you don't see it, you won't touch it. And thank God he did that, because that's still my retirement money. But a lot of people don't save and don't realize you have to have that money. The bank ain't just going to give you the money, and the bank ain't going to do this, and the bank ain't, and the SBA, they're going to do it. They'll give you some money, but they're going to do it to you. Man, that number right now for the SBA loan, I mean, it's a
Oh,
pretty
for
penny.
sure.
I mean,
It's a
you
big
are,
number right now.
yeah. So how much did you have to raise, and how much did you have to get a loan?
We had about 250,000 that we started with. So it wasn't, I mean, that was significant to us at the time, but we borrowed 1 million from the bank to buy the first machine. The advantage we also had with the machine was if our business plan or our idea didn't work out as a contract paper converter, I knew the equipment, so I could uninstall the equipment and reinstall it and sell it because it was somewhat of a prototype and was the first fine paper sheeter for Markwhip that I didn't think that I was going to lose any money out of the million because it was a prototype. So I got it at a discount. We worked out a deal, like a marketing deal with Markweb so that they could bring customers in and see the machine run, even though it was our plant. Um, so that helped us. It reduced the cost. So net, I figured like, okay, worst case, Jim and I lose the 250,000. And yes, that's significant, but we're 30, 31, 32 years old and we can rebound and move on. So that was a big part of our decision making too, was, we just figured, hey, we're young and but it's people believed in us. They believed in our backgrounds, being engineers, knowing the equipment. Coming into an industry was kind of dominated by salespeople that own the converting companies that were our competition, that really helped us when we would go and talk to whoever, printers, paper mills, whatever, we come in with engineering background, knowing the equipment inside and out. So that really helped us. And then the biggest thing was we had a niche that nobody else had. We could precision sheet, large format sheeting. That was kind of, like I said, the gentleman that was our advisor in Minneapolis. That got our foot in the door in a lot of different mills and stuff where others, where the paper mills had to take these big, large format sheets that would go into eventually into printing presses. They'd have to put them on a guillotine, and it would take time. There was long lead times that add a lot of waste. There was injuries, so on and so forth, and we could actually precision sheet it. So that was
So
kind of our, well, if you want to call it your why, right? Every business. I don't know if you've ever read the book by Simon Sinek,
yeah,
Yeah.
Start with why. I
yeah.
mean, that book is really good. And that's kind of how almost every business, the why is what's your niche? Why are they going to use you? Is somebody going to buy from you? Or, whatever, rent from you, buy your services, so on and so forth. So I think that's a key in any and all businesses is, how do you differentiate yourself from everybody else? And the more you can differentiate yourself from everybody else, obviously the more you can charge because the more unique you are.
I mean, you can't talk about a more commodity thing. Well, there are probably what? I mean, 10 of the most basic commodities, but paper has got to be one of those things, right? It's just such a commodity. And obviously he's talking about a really niche within the paper world, but going large format. But Chad, going back to it again, if you guys can't figure this out, man, he's an engineer, but he's not on the engineering spectrum. He can actually talk to people. He's a good sales guy. But I want to go back to what Alan was bringing up. I mean, you're starting it. Who were your customers, and how the hell were you going to sell this shit? Do you have what it takes to start your own business? Are you tired of the 9 to 5 corporate job and ready to make that leap into entrepreneurship? Then you need to check out From the Zoo to the Wild, the new book by successful entrepreneur Chris Lalamia. This book is a unique perspective on the journey into the wild world of home services and delivering excellence in service while working in customers' homes. Lalamia shares his path to success in this industry, including proven customer relationship strategies, award-winning customer experience processes, and a unique approach to training a team of service technicians to perform at the highest levels. Whether you're a small business trying to scale or a franchise operation, From the Zoo to the Wild will give you the mindset, habits, leadership style, and customer-oriented processes to succeed as a small business owner in the home services space. So if you're ready to take control of your future, get your copy of From the Zoo to the Wild today, available on Amazon.
So there was a lot of funny full stories early on. We weren't automated at the beginning. We have recycling. So when you take paper, we take rolls of paper and convert them into sheets. And to do that, you have to take trim along the side. You're going to get diverted, rejected sheets. And so we were baling all this stuff, or if you want to call it baling, but we were putting it into big gaylords. And we would take rejected rolls that a paper mill would feel bad because we were just starting up, and they would send us rejected rolls that we would use as like a compactor to compact paper inside a gaylord so we could send it off to a recycler. But it was just it was just a neat story of how we started and how manual we were to what we became, and again to have 4 people that initially believed in us that allowed us to hire them, to come on board with a brand new company to what we became was pretty incredible. And then, a big part of it is Jim. Like, Jim was an amazing business partner. You've got to have a business partner that believes in you and you believe in him or her. If you don't have that, it,
Yeah, we got to talk about that one because I can tell you, I know that's a big one for you, Alan, and we talked about this a lot. There's a reason I'm not a partner. That's why I haven't taken on a partner.
Chris doesn't play well with others. You may not know that.
He does know that. You see that in person.
Well, here, let me go back to the sales end. So, we were scraping for anything and everything. And again, we got lucky. You got to be in the game to get lucky. When I say we got lucky is so we would start off in the job lot side of sales. So it's the bottom of the bottom. Like nobody wants to do that type of stuff, but we had to start somewhere. And then we had a paper mill. It's called Temboard. They're out of Canada. And they were having some coding issues or in a certain span of time. And so some of the converters weren't happy with them and they weren't happy with the converters. And it was just perfect timing where they were looking for a new converter. And then, we found them, they found us, and then they moved their business. And we were about 9 months in, I think it was October of 2000, and we were getting tighter with cash, we spent a lot of the $250,000 of working capital. And I remember calling Ginny, my mother, and I'm like, hey, mom, I said, we've got these three big projects coming on. One was a printer, which came our way because another converter messed up. They may had a quality issue. So obviously, again, you get lucky because you're in the game. But I said, Jenny, I said, hey, if these guys don't come on, we're not going to make payroll next month. They said, what's your advice? No, my mother is a CPA. And so she was a controller of different paper mills, this and that, with her VP of finance, blah, 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 blah. And she comes back and she's like, well, you better start applying for credit cards. And I'm like, great advice. Thanks. Like, what the hell does that do for me? Basically, what she's saying is she's basically saying, hey, you better get your ass out on the road and get the sales because nobody's going to be there to help. So it was great
all right.
advice. It was funny, but
That is funny. So you probably went there going, "Hey, Ma, can I get a loan?" And she's like, "Hey, Chad, how about you go get some credit cards or get your ass in the
exactly
car like Tommy Boy and go sell some shit out there and let's make it happen." So is
right.
that what happened? Is it? Do
Yeah,
you
pretty
let Jim?
much.
Jim took care of the warehouse and making the operations work, and
Yeah.
you
So
took off
Jimmy
started
and I,
selling.
yeah. So early on, I had to train Jimmy just to learn how to run a sheeter and this and that, whatever. But we would do anything and everything from taking calls, sales, hunting, hunting for sales, building skids, running the sheeters, packaging, so on and so forth. I mean, so we are both from Niagara. Niagara had a paper mill back in the day, and they had, I don't know, like 2 truckloads of paper that they were just gonna job lot. And Jim's parents both worked for Niagara. My mother worked for Niagara for a certain amount of time. And so they, again, I think they just felt bad. So they're like, hey, you guys want 2 truckloads of paper for free? And we're like, oh, yeah, what are we going to do with it? So we figured out that we could take this paper and we wrapped it into small, like 50-pound bundles. And then I would be in the plant running the product because I mean, we were trying to find cash in any way possible and trying to find, what's our niche. And so Jimmy's out, he would rent a U-Haul and then he would drive down to like Milwaukee, Chicago, Madison, selling to moving companies these 50-pound uh bundles of packaging paper that you use for moving and stuff like that.
Oh, that's
So
hilarious.
It is like Tommy Boy.
It is Tommy
yeah,
Boy.
it's like
Jimmy, get in the truck, get down there, start selling shit. It doesn't hurt so much here, but right here.
yeah, so
So
I mean, I wish we would have had an iPhone back in those days, just to kind of, and I was only in 2000, right? But I don't know,
right.
it was really, again, you have to be in the game to get lucky. I say that
I
all the
love that
time.
line. I love that. You got to be in the game to be lucky because I mean, that's just so right.
But you obviously have to do your homework. You got to put the blood, sweat, and tears in. I mean, obviously, to get lucky, it means you did something potentially right to get in the game. You did your research and so on and so forth. But so we went from calling Ginny saying like, hey, what are we going to do next month to the paper mill 10 board I talked about. They came on board with us, and then the printer came on board, and we had this job lotter that all came on board within a month's time. And we went from Jimmy in a U-Haul selling bundles of packaging paper to basically running 24/5 within a month or two.
You talk about that though, and I think that's the biggest thing. You said a couple things. I think they're just killer that people don't realize is that you got to wake up every day and solve a problem as an entrepreneur. We talked about that.
Right.
I said that in the beginning, but you guys did, and you called. You called Jenny and said, "Hey, here's what I got." And she's like, "If you couldn't light a fire under somebody's already working 12 to 14 hours a day, she lit a fire, or she at least brought focus down to what you had to do right now in these next 30 days." And that's how you make your luck, right? We talked about that. Yeah, I love your phrase, "in the game to be lucky," but you've also got to make your own luck. And you guys did that by buying a little bit of time to see if those guys would actually hit, and that you landed them. That's awesome.
100%. Yeah. And then after that, our competition was mostly, a lot of them were similar to paper mills in that the industry really changed a lot, the print industry, going from standard size sheets to, like I said, large format sheets. And then the industry moved into digital printing and digital tiny small sheets. And we tried to, or we worked with Markup again on building a different style knife that allowed, basically added another knife to their dual rotary cylinders to allow them to run super fast in short sheets or the digital sheet market,
So,
which
so
again
Chad,
was another niche.
hey, Alan, what was your major again?
uh, to teach art.
So you just blew Alan's mind. You just laid down so many engineering. I'm not lying. You blew my mind. You just laid down so many engineering terms. So you guys, so you landed the first three, and now you guys are perfecting and figuring out other ways. But you're using your engineering mind to solve those problems. Like, hey, there's a new problem going on, because probably in 2000, let's see, you started in 2000, so 2003, four, the internet really starts booming again. Age yourself, just talk technology. And you probably heard death of printing, right? No paper's
All right.
ever going to happen ever again. I just heard a stat, and I want to know if that's true. There's more print going on now than there was in 2000. Is that true?
Honestly, I'd have to actually look that up. But I mean,
Don't
yeah, I
fact
mean,
check me. Let's just go with it. Call
well,
me
I mean,
Trump, baby.
Sounds good.
Call me
a
Trump.
lot of people are printing stuff at your house now, right? Instead of wherever, you're printing out your own bank statements or so on and so forth. So it probably changed, from printing out at the manufacturer. There's magazines or this and that, whatever newspapers you used to have, and now people are printing more things at home or at the office or so on and so forth.
No, I mean, that is amazing. So you guys are in there, you're looking at it, but you went back and said, "Hey, we got to come up with something else that's going to keep us on the forefront, keep us not to be a paper commodity." So you went back
Correct.
to Mark Whip because you had a great relationship. And again, you're downplaying it, but man, I just know for a fact that you worked those networks, you worked Mark Whip, you worked your customers. I know you did a good thing. You do the right thing by people. I just know that about you. But um, tell me how you were able to instill that in your sales guys, because you actually scaled to a level to be able to sell. So how were you able to take Chad and Jim's commitment, who did every job in the company ever, and then turn it into saying, "All right, here's what we're about," and how do you do that? How do you bring that down to people?
Well, I mean, the nice thing is that maybe it's the engineering background that we all have, that we were very hands-on. So Jim and I were the sales guys. So we were till the very end, till we sold the business. But one thing that was unique is everybody that was all our teammates that worked with us, um, they all seen that Jim and I would work just as hard as them. We were on the floor, we were running sheeters, we were packaging, we were building skids, we were loading and unloading semis, we were baling, so on and so forth. We did all the stuff in the office. Now, obviously, that changed as we grew because we went from 4 employees to we bought our own building or built our own building, and then we expanded into Pennsylvania. We ended up with like 240 employees 15 years in. Um, so we couldn't be, on the floor all the time running, cheaters every single day because we just couldn't. So then it was a change, right? So you start off, it was we learned a lot. Again, our advisors were fantastic the whole time because they guided us the whole way. Like, okay, so hey, all right, we filled up one cheater. What do we do next? Well, maybe you guys got to look at buying a building or renting a building or finding a different facility. So then we did. And Beaver Dam, we moved to Beaver Dam. They borrowed us money to build a building. We started a second company, the real estate, the commercial property side of the company. We paid ourselves instead of paying somebody else to rent. That allowed us to buy the building after 3 years. And so then we were building two businesses, right? I mean, obviously the easy one was commercial properties. But as we continued evolve and gain momentum and informing people who we were and how we were different versus all the other contract converters that were in the paper industry, and that we could, that we knew the equipment, that we could run large format plus all the commodity sizes, and a lot of it was just belief. And then having people outperforming everybody else. You're outworking everybody else. You're you're instantaneously getting back to people. If other competitors took them a day or three to get back to them, and we were responding immediately. It all played a big part, and then you have to find the right teammates, right? Um,
So,
you have to
so
find
it
the right
sounds like,
people.
did you find the right teammate every single time, all the time?
Well,
Because let me
for
tell you
sure
the
not.
anti, let me tell you the
Right.
anti side of that. Yeah. So in the handyman business, Alan, um, and Chad, I chose the wrong business and definitely didn't scale. And no, I did. I'm just joking. But I have to kiss a lot of frogs to find that prince. And man, dude, it was tough. I mean, I have now my average tenure now is 7 years. But when I first started, it was 7 months. I mean, for the first 4 years, if I kept somebody for 7 months, I'm like, yoo-hoo, I got a long-term employee. So how did you guys find them? Did you guys have a secret sauce that we should all be looking for?
Oh, we were in a small community when we started, and we probably hired 20 employees there. So I think being in that smaller community helped. And as we moved to Beaver Dam, which was only 15 miles away, but a bigger community, I think it had a lot to do a lot of different things. One, we were new to the community, right? So there was a lot of news about it. Hey, Northwoods Paper Converting just moved into town, building a 60,000 square foot facility. Then Jim and I were active within the community. We were on certain boards. We were on the YMCA board, and we would, get become a part of a lot of nonprofit organizations. We had our own 5K race that we eventually started and donated all the money. So we were involved in the community, so that our name stayed out in the community. And then here again, I think since we were on the floor a lot when we were growing early on, employees or teammates really like to see that. They're like, hey, this is a little bit different, right? We weren't bigger where they never seen the boss as much or this and that, whatever. And don't get me wrong, when we were at 240 employees, like I said, Jim and I couldn't be on the floor all the time anymore. But early on, it really helped us grow. And a lot of those initial employees, the original teammates, they're still with Beaver Dam to this day, even after
Look at
we
that.
sold the business 6 years ago.
Really?
You created a culture by being on the floor, though,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
right.
then they
Yeah,
passed
right.
on to the new people.
100%. That's I think the thing that a lot of people might miss on this is that the culture that he showed was there is nothing beneath me. I've done every job in this company. I
Hmm.
have cleaned a toilet, I have taken out the garbage, and I have talked to our biggest account that we have today. And I'm willing to put in the hours. If you're willing to go with me, I'm going to invite you on this journey and let's go do it. So the
Yeah, that's
culture,
that's the key is a culture, right?
yeah,
100%. Yep.
yeah, that's awesome.
Developing that culture.
But
And
why?
then you got
Why?
to, as we grew, we had to find teammates that could allow us to grow, right? Like Jim and I had to free up with some of the momentum that we had, and interest and continual growth. So we were fortunate to we hired Jim's brother, who worked in the office with us and on the floor. He headed up like safety and did a lot of customer service work for us and other. My sister came on and she was head of accounting and HR. So we had a couple of friends from high school that worked with us in production as operators and managers. And so you had people that you trusted or that we were fortunate enough to work with as teammates that we could trust and hand off stuff because Jim and I we didn't micromanage. It was just like, hey, this is what we got to do. You got to do this. We got to go do that. So on and so forth. And so yeah, we found
So,
talent.
Chet, how did you and Jim, as engineers, because here again, engineers on the spectrum, it's hard. I mean, you can't be an engineer and have a personality. In fact, Chad is proving that you can. Um, But when I meet people, they're like, I've actually literally, I told someone, I'm like, yeah, I got an engineering degree. The guy looked at me and goes, no way. I was a little bit different than everybody else. I have to admit,
For
I didn't
sure.
know it at the time, but I was, and so was Chad, and that's why we got along so well. So as you're doing that and you're handing off things, how hard was that? And did you ever get burned in doing it? And where you went, oh, shouldn't have done it, Jimmy, we got to get back on the floor, or you know what, I'm not going to let them do this anymore.
No, I think, we kind of knew what our goal was, right? And the only way we were going to get to that goal with continual growth, whatever that meant. We didn't have anything in the top, we weren't sales guys, if you want to call it that. And we didn't have a number out there to say, hey, we got to get to 10 million in sales by this year, next year, 5 years from now. We just kind of took things day by day. And yeah, we were fortunate to find great teammates and who believed in us, and then find customers who believed in us, and um, yeah, they loved our story, right? We came in with a little bit different background than most people for the contract paper converting industry, being engineers, and I think for me, it's always been and Jim. We were very open, right? We were honest people. We were open. Yeah, we were open book. Um, what you saw was what you got. Our offices probably weren't as clean as most other people's offices, but it didn't matter. It's like, so, we didn't come in suit and tie. We came in with a polo shirt and jeans, and that's who we were, right?
Dungarees, my friends, dungarees.
So
Yeah.
Huh?
So,
you obviously had to have a business plan to get the loan from the bank.
yeah.
So my first question is, did you continually reference that? Because then I hear, okay, we were just scrambling, trying to sell paper to moving companies, and then all of a sudden, boom, a couple things happen, and you're 24/5. And at that point, did you guys sit back and start planning? Like, we may need a safety person because now all of a sudden we got all these people. We may need an HR person. We may, at what point did you actually start trying to strategic plan? Because it seems like that's more of a backfill than a
Yeah, I
proactive
would
thing.
say it was like so in our toward the second to third year, as we were looking to grow and add a second sheeter. We were running 24/7, and we knew that, we had more business to grow with. And we were fortunate that, like Jim's brother had some, knowledge in the paper industry, and would take on, safety and other things for us. And then Kim, kind of being developed by Ginny, my mother. She's a CPA. Kim didn't have a 4 year accounting degree, but had like a 2 year HR degree, and then HR roles in the past. So Kim was of interest to us because Jenny could train Kim in accounting. So we kind of got our HR accounting fill and teammate. And yeah, and to me, like I said, to me, some of that's luck that, you had people around you that could help your weaknesses, because Jim and I aren't experts in, I mean, we became to figure out sales, but really the sales to us was just selling the people that worked with us and the equipment that we purchased and what it could do. I mean, there wasn't really anything special about being a sales guy, and just being honest and talking open.
All right, we got to we're coming to the end. I love the journey. And I knew this was going to happen, and I got to tell everybody. So Chad is one of the most humble guys I have actually ever met. I mean, he won't say what I'm about to say. Man, he fucking killed it. And what he doesn't say is, yeah, I use my engineering expertise and my sales expertise and my ability to network and use and leverage my people to help me get to where I wanted to go. And that's how, by the way, I think that's how he got his wife, because he definitely outkicked his coverage. Hey, now, come on, now, I'm kidding. And his kids are killing it too. You're doing a great job. But now we got to talk about Nirvana. So when Chad and I
There's more.
oh wait, so when Chad and I reconnected, he kind of goes, "Oh shucks, yeah, I sold my company. Oh shucks, yeah, it was for like that number." You're like, and I'm like, I'm like, he's texting. I'm like, "Oh, I'm so happy for you." No, you're not. Nobody is. You're like, "Take me with you. How'd you do it?" So
I'm
we
surprised he didn't change his number and that you didn't have the new one.
no, I'm super happy for him. I can't even tell you this, but we got like 10 minutes left. But I just could real quick. Can you tell people were you looking for the exit? Did you plan for the exit, or did it just happen?
So we had a customer, a paper mill that was talking with us about trying to grow into Minnesota and California. And we were already in the East and the Midwest. Our biggest competitor, Progressive Converting, who ended up buying us, was national. They had a facility out east in the Midwest. They had one in Minnesota and California and Virginia. And they tried to buy us out in 2006 and 2010 or 11, something like that. Or not buy us out. I think maybe the first time was looking to buy us out or partial merge. And then the second one was merge. And so I approached them. The market didn't need additional converting. It just needed to, you know, it needed to make itself healthier, right? And then somebody needed to buy a couple of guys out, and so I went back. So Jim and I went back to ProCon and said, "Hey, we've got an opportunity with the mill. Whether you like it or not, it's up to you. You've talked about." Buying us in the past. Here's who we are. This is our PA plant. This is our Wisconsin plant. They were close to us in PA. Their plant from our plant was like, I don't know, half hour away from each other. So the only way they would be interested in our East plant is if we were to close it down. They'd buy a lot of the equipment, or they would offer the opportunity for our employees or teammates out East to work with them. So that's what we did. And then Wisconsin still runs as it is today. They couldn't absorb Wisconsin because it was too big at the time, and maybe still is. It's still a very profitable plant for Progressive Converting, but yeah, it was a great marriage, for them. Jim and I stayed on for 2 years, or I stayed on for 2 years as kind of a handoff. And then they exercised the earn-out clause that allowed them to let me go. They already had their corporate team. So I would have done the same thing. And then Jimmy was released about a year after I left. Great opportunity for the people that were within Beaver Dam, because a lot of them got to move up. Our head of engineering and maintenance, he's now the plant manager. So it was a great bump for him. A lot of the other people, within the organization with Jim and I gone, and they let some of our CSRs go, and Kim go from HR and accounting, because that was at a corporate level. So yeah, and to get to the point of selling, we were just kind of day to day. We didn't really have like, hey, we gotta retire by a certain point. We gotta sell by a certain point. It was just a feel thing. It was just like, okay, it kind of feels right now. And fortunately we had, some conversations with Progressive Converting in the past, stating that they had interest, and we had some interest in them because we almost merged with them in 2010. So it just worked out. The timing was right. And for Procon, it's been fabulous. They bought out, another converter shut down in the East. So they're super healthy in the East, and in the Midwest, they bought another one of their largest competitors. So, and they're kind of the go-to guys now. They've got all the different paper mills. They've got all the flexibility that the paper mills would need when they outsource converting. So yeah, it's a great success story in many ways. And hopefully, a lot of people ask like, hey, you regret? No, I don't regret anything. I think it was the right thing to do. I think it was the right thing for the industry. I think it needed to consolidate some. And then since paper mills have consolidated, so
So
um,
you are one of the, and this is the stat, you are one of the 3% of the no regret sale clause. There are only 3% of people who sell their businesses that have no regrets.
Did you
90
pull that out of your ass?
No, Chris Hanks.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Ooh.
Chris Hanks, who runs my CEO group, has mentioned that, and it comes from books and it comes from studies. So, Chad, man, that part is awesome, and that's why I love hearing the story. You can tell, even if it's not your business, right? I'm not talking about paper. I'm talking about what Chad did. Is he took a paper market, which I mean, literally, that's a commodity. A paper is a. I mean, you can't get more
I
commodity.
just love this. It's such an American Midwest mite
dude,
story.
and he is.
I freaking love it.
And I did say humble. I actually was biting my tongue. I said, other than the freaking Packers, Jesus Lord. I mean, they
I
got
was trying to find like a Packer helmet to wear for this interview.
oh, thank God. So no, but it just again a great story because I mean it's from beginning to end and taking that chance. And You know, when I go talk to high school kids, I'm like, I don't care when you start a business, you're never too young. But you can always be unprepared, and don't be unprepared. I don't care how old you are. And Chad alluded to it, but he really was prepared because he had saved, he had mentors, he was in the business, he saw an opportunity, and he also knew the rebound. The rebound plan was, hey, if it doesn't work, at least I can uninstall and reinstall, and maybe at least get neutral. So,
Yeah,
lot,
he didn't have the experience, but he had a plan.
right? I think so.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, looking back on it, I mean, it's just, yeah, amazing story. When he told me the deal, and then I'm thinking, oh, awesome, he's out. Okay, good. Chad, I'm coming up. I'm going to stay at your lake house. We're going to tool around the lake, and then we're going to the Packers. And I go up there, and we do all that. And he goes, yeah, so I'm back in. Like, dude, what? Because you knew he can't. I mean, you can tell from the guy already. He's got too much energy. He just can't do it. And so,
Sounds like another
or
podcast coming.
or the wife picked him up and said, "Hey, we can't live together if you're going to stay home all
Well,
the time."
it's interesting, so I met another gentleman from, or not met, I knew another gentleman from Niagara, which is where I'm from, where Jim's from, also my other business partner, and TJ knew about this opportunity within the packaging industry. And so, yeah, we looked at it, and then we co-own All About Packaging, and it's different. So it's the same thing. Like, we didn't greenfield start it. So you're inheriting what was there, their culture, their background, this and that, whatever. And then you're trying to tweak it to growth in the future, and then find your why. And again, you're trying to bring maybe your past and culture into it. So it's unique. Every opportunity is unique to another.
No, it's awesome what he did. He got back involved. What's funny is
I would love to talk to him about that on another episode
I
because that's a
know.
completely different animal. But
Oh yeah,
before you go, I mean, is Chris welcome back at Lambeau?
oh
I
yeah, for
heard.
sure. Oh, so man, you wouldn't believe it. So we got these tickets right behind the Lions bench,
Oh God.
and we were all pumped up right away. I think they threw first drive. Lions throw a pick, and we're going nuts. We go and we score. It's 7-0, and then I don't think we scored again. I think it ended up being like 48-7. So we were all over all the Lions fans. There's a bunch of Lions fans around us, and then we didn't say another word the whole time.
But Chris
We're
did.
getting hammered.
Oh, Chris. Oh, yeah. Actually, he hasn't seen the video. Jerry videoed me, and you could see the entire crowd started moving away. And there's these four women with they wear the Packer overalls, right? And so they have the green stripes and the yellow stripes, and there's just me and them, and they're moving away. And he swears in his video he sees a gun coming out, getting ready to take me down, and that's what they. It's so fun, but no, it was. I mean, Lambeau is it. That and our
That's on my
trip.
bucket list.
Oh, I'm telling you
Well,
what,
you
it
you
needs to
know
be.
that Chris was pretty quiet the whole day.
Yeah, yeah. I've been to a couple
Yeah.
events with him. Oh my
I
God.
Hey,
mean,
baby.
as soon as the Lions got up 10-7, 14-7, he didn't stop talking. It
No, there's
was,
no way. No, I did not stop talking. Not until we got back to the truck, and then you started driving. Then, bam, I passed out again. That's my job. Chad, this is awesome. Thanks, buddy, for coming on. Yeah, I
not a
know you
problem.
helped our audience. Hey, if you guys didn't learn something today, man, you got to learn this, right? You can be a commodity. You got to differentiate yourself. And Chad, he laid it down for you, right? If you think you're an introvert, if you think you're an analytical guy, you got to go the other way. If you want to solve problems every day, you got to solve problems every single day. If you're not a solving problem guy, an analytical guy, and you're a really outgoing introverted guy or extroverted guy, you got to get back in and get that and find that partner
And you got to surround yourself with really good people and good advisors and take their advice.
and take that advice. I
Mhm.
love that.
Look for it before you've made the mistake.
Love that. Awesome. Hey, Chad, this is awesome. Hey, guys, go out there, make it happen. We got to get out of here because we got to roll to the next one.
Thanks. Cheers, everybody.
See you later, guys.